your effort doesn't seem like what it usually is today. What's going on, man? So now I'm curious. I'm not going to even ask you to self-assess like your effort level, but I'm asking you to check in with yourself. Like, I just haven't been dialed in, or just going on. You may not even recognize that you're checked out, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to move past the fact that your effort's at a 5 or a 2, right? We're just going to go straight to what's really actually going on for you. What's getting in the way of you giving great effort today? And it's just having that conversation is like, okay, well, if you're going to be here, what can you do right now? Well, I get it. You're tired, you didn't sleep well last night, or your girlfriend broke up with you, or whatever it is, right? It's just like, what can you do right now to raise that up? Okay, let's get out there and get after it. So those are kind of like 2 ways to go about it. Other times, just a simple support statement. Like if your time is short, you might just be like, I might pull you aside and say, Justin, we've had this conversation.
You are listening to the Bridging Impact Podcast, transforming leaders on and off the court with host, Coach Furtado. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We have a great guest with you all here, coming all the way from Dublin, JP Nerbun. He is a best-selling author, leadership coach, and founder of TOC Culture Consulting, a leading global sports consulting and leadership coaching business. His mission is to support leaders in their teams to achieve their full potential through one-on-one coaching, consulting, and community. So, welcome to the show, JP.
Kevin, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited.
All right, so let's dive right in. Before we get into, your work now and coaching the coaches and, your work as a basketball coach, I would love for you to, just tell the audience, how has sports, maybe it's basketball or other sports, made an impact on your life?
Man, some good things and bad things. I think there is the truth. If you got to look back at my life and how it's gone, and so much of it taught me at an early age just to instill a passion and a work ethic in me. And I was fortunate to have good parents that never treated basketball, which was my sport, as something that I was entitled to. It was always a privilege, something we had to earn. And so that I think that they would often take it away from me when I failed to make the grades, things like that. So that actually helped me appreciate the opportunity, that I had and what I was doing. So there's a lot that came from that as far as work ethic. And also sports provided some real challenges for me. I mean, I was working for some goals, and those were some good challenges, but there were some setbacks too. I had a highly emotionally abusive high school basketball coach, and that really left some scars. And it's been tough to work through that through some of my adult years. And so oftentimes the way we were coached, the way we were parented is the way that we go on to coach and parent. And so I've had to work through some of that stuff over the years.
Let's dive right into that. I think, you touch on the important part of sports, the passion, the work ethic, and earning, the importance of just sports as a privilege, right? And, school comes first. And I think really what's important, what you talked about there is, talking about how not to coach. And I feel like that experience really provided you that. And it's unfortunate that there are many coaches out there, that tear people down. And just coaching is such an influential part of young people's lives. And so can you talk a little bit more about what you learned on how not to coach and how you kind of recovered from that?
Yeah. So, for me, I never really appreciated that yelling, screaming, type of coaching. It never really resonated with me. And then I had a coach that, on the sidelines would pull us out of the games, and he would, in front of 1,000 people, would just absolutely lay into us. And after he laid into us, he'd be like, he'd be 2 inches from our face, he might put us at the end of the bench, or he might throw us back in the game. Typically I was thrown back in the game because, I was a good player and he wanted me in the game. But I went through years of that. And then we get in the locker room and he would just absolutely unload on us there even worse. And oftentimes he would just pick 1 or 2 guys. Probably for my sophomore and junior year in particular, I was the target 90% of the time. He just was coming after me. And I was a difficult kid. I was a hothead. I was a probably a little bit overconfident and didn't share the ball enough. Like, I mean, I wasn't a perfect athlete by any means, but the way that I was treated, I mean, sometimes, physical boundaries were crossed, and just that wears on you day after day after day. And, by my junior year, my parents actually sent me to a therapist because I was struggling with, suicidal thoughts and just really into a deep depression. Kind of by my senior year in high school, I kind of had this point where I just became really submissive. I've been broken, and it was just, yes, move on. Like it was just the way that I played the game, the way that I interacted was just really, really just kind of been beaten down. So then you fast forward a few years, and I'm coaching basketball, and, I'm always been a passionate guy, always a lot of energy, a lot of hard work ethic. And I brought that passion, that fire, and that intensity. But that naturally led to me, a lot of good things happening for me, and a lot of players wanting to play for me. But then when it came to discipline or motivating my team when they weren't working hard, my toolkit was what I only knew. And the coach I had for 4 years was a coach. His toolkit was fear. You're not working hard, I'm going to run you, yell at you, scream at you, get in your face and tell you that. And I was never that bad, and that's probably one of the things that kept me from growing early on, was just like, I'm not like him. I wasn't like my high school coach, but I still was relying too much on that. And so it took a lot of time to essentially first off, find some new tools, new ways of disciplining, new ways of holding guys accountable in a way that was respectful and kind, but also really firm and still assertive, as well as I had to kind of retrain my own default response. Like, I was emotionally dysregulated on the sidelines way too much. And so I was never a calming force for my team. And I was never a really good example of how to respond to adversity mistakes. So that took a lot of personal work as well, too.
You talk about kind of the chat, like your growth and recognizing your toolkit. And my curiosity kind of about your journey is, when it comes to recognizing that, you may need to add some different tools to the toolkit to be kind, but also be assertive. What was that journey of self-evolution like for you? Did you have, a mentor or a coach who was helping you through that process, or, how did you go through that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because along my journey, I had a lot of people trying to speak into my life, a lot of parents, a lot of other individuals, other coaches that were kind of pointing it out, but I was always in defensive, and never really receptive to that. Along that journey, I mean, I really was trying to build culture. I was trying to develop character in my athletes. I really wanted to make a difference with my sport. So I had my teams doing, leadership curriculums. I had them doing character curriculums. I was doing everything I could to try to help communicate a message and develop them. And yet my breakthrough was, I actually had a few people in my life, a couple parents. One was a parent of an athlete, and he sat me down and he said, "Hey man, like, you say you're trying to do all these things, you say you value these things, or character and self-control, and I really believe that that's really important to you. I 100% believe that. And I'm behind you and I'm supporting you. But what I'm seeing on the sidelines and what I'm hearing that's being said in locker rooms just doesn't match up." That was a real hard moment to hear that, and I had a few other people in my life, that athletic director, that really kind of spoke into me a few times and just gently, just kind of helped shine a light on some of my behaviors as a coach. And, my school invested in a mentor coach for me that started working with me. And I was trying to get someone to help me have the tools to fix all my players and fix all their attitude and be better at discipline. And I got those. But what I also learned along the path was, like, the first change had to happen in me, like I was the tool. I'm the first tool, and how I show up, how I model self-control, all these things. My example is the most powerful tool at my disposal as a coach. So I had to first work on refining that and working on that. Not that I needed to be perfect, but I had to be working at that. But that mentor coach also helped me to kind of get back to some maybe more science-based, research-based, evidence-based tools when it came to the discipline and motivation, rather than just the old school way of approaching it.
Yeah, that is really interesting that it sometimes takes those moments, whether it's a conversation with that parent or an athletic director to recognize like, hey, maybe we're not aligning our teachings and our coachings with our core values. And so, as you got this mentor of a coach and, we're really investing in your own development and growth. I'm just curious, what really helped you, learn how to, discipline but also be disciplined in a way that's really effective and builds people up. I think that's one thing that I'll just share right now. It's one thing that, I've been challenged with. I think I was on the other side, right? Both my parents are very kind people. And so like, I might've been too kind and like less on the discipline side. And so now like, that's one of the things I'm trying to get better at as a young coach. And I'm just curious, kind of what tools you learn that are effective when it comes to, because discipline and holding people accountable to a high standard is a very important part of a coach's job. And I want to continue as a young coach, continue to get better at that in a healthy manner that helps also our athletes learn, those important aspects of character and, leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a great question. This is a great way to frame kind of the two different hats that I wear in my work with helping coaches. One is a consultant and one is that as a coach. As a consultant, and what helped me so much was really practical ways to discipline. So a lot of my stuff is based on the research and the work through Dr. Jane Nelson and her stuff around positive discipline, where we use logical consequences with our athletes, which is typically a loss of a privilege. It's some sort of reset or a positive timeout, or you just creating some space. Or oftentimes it's just to fix it, And so, for example, that could be in a practice, a player's not working hard, rather than yelling at them, rather than screaming at them, rather than making them run or do some sort of conditioning. It's just like, hey, step off. And as soon as you're ready to start working hard again, you can let us know and you can hop back in. Or it's they don't do a rep, at the intensity. It's just, hey, do it again. Do it. We're going to keep doing it until we get it right, Other times it might be a little more severe, your consequence on the field or on the court. It's just like, hey, step off here. You're going to sit out for the rest of the scrimmage here until we're ready to get back in. But we're also working with the athletes in that moment to support, not just hold them accountable. So we're helping them develop coping tools and mechanisms. So, hey, when you do get asked to step off, or you're told you need to reset yourself, what works for you? Is it breathing? Is it dribbling 2 balls? Is it getting some free throws up? Is it getting some water? Is it doing some stretches? Is it some sort of mindfulness routine? Right. So we're trying to help our athletes be able to self-assess their behavior and then self-correct. So there's always support and accountability. There's always that's those two things go hand in hand. It's not one on one. It's not one or the other. So you've got these tools and what they look like in games. There's what they look like off the court stuff. There's a lot of restorative consequences that we work with our coaches about. So there's all those types of tools, but then there's this other element, and that is you as the coach. And this is kind of like where it goes from consulting to coaching. It's like, well, if I'm talking to coach here, and if I'm talking to you and you're saying you struggle and you're more on the permissive side, then I go, okay, well, Justin, so what's getting in the way from you stepping in and disciplining them? Like, you could have the tools, but your desire to be liked might be a big thing that comes up for us, right? That might be the thing that keeps you from holding players accountable. It might be a fear of their response. It might be a fear of the parents' response to that type of discipline. It might be just the lack of confidence and ability to use that tool and find the right words as a speaker or communicator. So there's a lot of things that also get in the way. It's not just about having the right tools, but we have to work on what's getting in the way for us as a leader and using those tools.
Yeah, that's a great thing that you bring up. And I think as I kind of get to a certain point, I'm starting to, kind of step out of the wanting to be liked by everyone. But I definitely think, like, as a natural people pleaser, that's been my challenge, is like, oh, if I make them, do this, they're not going to, like me as a coach, right? Like, I have very good positive relationships with a lot of my players. And I think that's something that has been my challenge. So you're kind of on the right, kind of track on that. And so one of the things, if I have like this group of 15, I have 17 guys on my team. So, making sure that I'm running practice smoothly while also helping them self-assess and self-correct. Could you give like an example when it comes to basketball? If I have someone, let's say that they're, just dogging it, and I want to help them kind of self-assess and recorrect, while also making sure that I don't take away time from the other 16 who are working hard. I think that's always the art of coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you kind of three different scenarios. Well, one is where you have a bit of time and you haven't had a conversation with the athlete about this before. That first support and then accountability measure might be just polling. I say, hey, Justin, come over here, man. Like, all right, your effort, scale 1 to 10, what's it at? Just give it me. Okay, it's a 6, it's a 7, it's a 5, it's a 2. I don't really care what you say. I just go, okay. As long as it's not a 9 or a 10, I'm like, all right, what do you got to do to raise that from a 7 to a 9? What do you got to do to take it from a 5 to a 7? And I'm just getting you to do that. That's a bit more of a leading question, right? Because I have an agenda. Like my agenda is like, your effort's not great. The athlete knows that you're pointing, shining a light on that, right? So the self-correct is just, what are you going to do to fix that? A less kind of more open question, less leading of a question would be, hey, Justin, what's going on, man? Your effort doesn't seem like what it usually is today. What's going on, man? So now I'm curious. I'm not going to even ask you to self-assess like your effort level, but I'm asking you to check in with yourself. Like, I just haven't been dialed in, or just going on. You may not even recognize that you're checked out, right? So I'm just going to go in and we're going to move past the fact that your effort's at a 5 or a 2, right? We're just going to go straight to what's really actually going on for you. What's getting in the way of you giving great effort today? And it's just having that conversation is like, okay, well, if you're going to be here, what can you do right now? Well, I get it. You're tired, you didn't sleep well last night, or your girlfriend broke up with you, or whatever it is, right? It's just like, what can you do right now to raise that up? Okay, let's get out there and get after it. So those are kind of like two ways to go about it. Other times, just a simple support statement. Like if your time is short, you might just be like, I might pull you aside and say, Justin, we've had this conversation before, man. I know you're struggling today, but I believe in you and I know you can give more. The team needs you. Let's get after it, or else you might have to sit out at some practice. So, I'm just pouring in you. I'm just a quick statement of just like, you can do better. I believe in you. That's my support. But I'm also reminding you, like, hey, if you choose to not work harder, you're gonna step out. And then when you do enforce that discipline, you enforce that consequence, you just say, hey, man, like, you're not giving the effort. We need you out there. The team needs you, but we can't have you if you're giving this type of effort.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Those are good. And I feel like what a lot of the, guests we've had on the podcast, and there's a book right up here, it's kind of cut off, but it talks about the importance of asking questions. And it's like it really impacted me, instead of always telling the answers, for everything, and just getting them to get buy-in. So I just, really like the scale of 1 to 10, right? Like that's super simple. I could do that super quick, or whatever coach is listening to that, like scale 1 to 10. How can we get that to a 7 to a 9? And then it comes from them at least too. It's not like coaches told me to do this. It's like, it's almost a commitment when they say I'll go to a 7 to a 9 or a 5 to a 7 for themselves. And so that's a really cool tactic. And I think one of the things that we were kind of talking about pre-podcast that, kind of I hear and hear about your journey, and, I'm kind of talking about my growth is, the evolution and the talk around being an authentic coach. And really, what does that actually mean? Because we don't want to be a coach where it's just like, this is who I am and I'm not going to grow, right? Obviously both of us have done our own growing in our coaching careers, and we've had to become my authentic coach this year will be different than I am next year, and for last year, and vice versa. Can you talk about, kind of the authentic coaching and how to actually, kind of continue to evolve and grow and have that growth mindset as a coach, and also make sure that you're leading through principles and core values that you really believe in?
Yeah, I mean, people get growth mindset a little muddled. I mean, I think they think growth mindset is just, I read books, I listen to podcasts, and I watch videos on how to improve and learn. And really, it's to grow and evolve. Back to my high school coach, I still remember this very, very clearly. One time during my junior year, he had gotten some feedback from some parents around his behaviors and just yelling. And he said, "Hey, I'm not going to yell today. I'm not going to yell today's game." Gets to halftime and he absolutely blows up on us, slams the door, slams, the playbook thing to the ground, is like, "Enough of this. Like, I've been trying to not yell at you. People getting on my case about it, but the reality is this is just who I am, and I'm just going to do what I know how to do. Like this is who I am. I'm just going to do what I know." And so often I think that's something we've all said as coaches. Like, I'm just going to go back to what's comfortable. I'm going to go back to what's easy, what's default, what's my natural reaction. And we're going to claim that as authentic. And that's bogus, man. Like if you're the same person you were 5 years ago, like, what have you been doing? If you're the same person you were a year ago, like, you're failing. Like, we all have to be growing and evolving. And so being authentic, like, I think I had a coach, I was on a coaching call the other day, and a coach said, "I got to be more positive this year. One of my goals is to be a little bit more of a positive encourager, but I still got to be myself." And I said, "Well, what does that mean to be yourself?" He said, "Well, that's my style, my personality." I said, "And has your style and your personality remained the same throughout the 15 years of your coaching?" Actually, probably like 20 for this guy, right? 20 years of coaching. It's like, absolutely not. And I was like, exactly, right? We can evolve, right? You can become a more positive, encouraging person, not just do or be more positive, encouraging. You can become a more positive, encouraging person. And that can, so for me, I thought, like, I'm a fiery Irishman, right? Like, that was me. Like, that's my spirit. That's my nature. And I was just like, that's what I am. But you know what? The reality was, like, yeah, but there's different parts of me. There's a part of me that can be quiet, that can be reserved, that can be calm. And then the reality is, as a leader, I needed to really not tap too much into that fiery Irishman personality. I needed to lean more into other parts of me at different times, especially when my team makes mistakes or the other team goes on a run. Like I have to be that little bit more calm and reserved. I still can be assertive in those moments, but it's figuring out what parts of us do we need to focus on, and is also how do we evolve those parts. And there's some parts we probably just got to leave behind altogether, honestly.
Right. Some parts that just don't help at all, or whether it's the people pleasing, or if you're on the complete other end of the spectrum and you're, kind of like your high school coach. And I think that is interesting, right? It's recognizing, and I have a similar thing, right? Like, I am a very passionate coach, right? And I can get very animated and into it. And I also recognize, like, the importance of, at least, especially, basketball is like, you're a teacher, right? And I think really this last year, I recognized, like, I'm a teacher of the game, and I don't need to be super animated when I'm teaching certain details, right? It's like a little bit more of, crisp detail, right? Making sure that they understand, asking those questions and, kind of getting them to engage, just like in a math teacher would do when it comes to, teaching someone how to shoot a jump shot or run a certain play and whatnot. And so I think, recognizing that there are multiple aspects to ourselves. And so when it comes to, like, our own, kind of journey, when it comes to, like, I think it's easy to listen to the podcast. It's easy to listen to the books. It's easy to watch the videos. The hardest thing is to actually do the work. And I know as coaches, we expect our athletes always to grow, become better shooters, become, better athletes in the gym, whatever it is, right? The hardest thing is actually doing and putting in the work. And so, in your growth and evolution as a coach, would you say that came from, like, self-initiative, or is that, like, working with other coaches and being in coach groups? Like, how did you make sure and prioritize that growth for yourself?
Yeah, for me, it was hiring a mentor, hiring a coach. Like, and actually, I use that word, mentor and a coach. They're actually different. A mentor is someone that's, we can find mentors. They are people that have walked the road before us. They have this experience, and they just share their experiences with us to help us on our journey. The problem is that mentorship often isn't enough, and I needed a coach at different times because the leadership is complex, culture is complex, the world is complex. A coach with 50 years coaching experience has not coached in 2024 yet. And 2024 looks a lot different than 2004. And so the work of a coach is to help individuals, oftentimes through asking questions and through exploration, help individuals really identify who they want to become, what they're working on to achieve, different objectives, and working with them. And the reality is, we are all, a good coach recognizes that the leader that they're working with is the expert on their own life and the expert on their own team. And so it's really the work of a coach just to help that leader take different perspectives, to step back. Like I had a coach today that's a head coach at a cross country program, but then moves into an assistant coaching role in the track and field season. And there's conflict between these two coaches. And, this coach got on that call and they wanted a solution to convince this other coach of how to do something. What he didn't really need that. What he needed to do was to step back and take a different perspective, which is to understand what was really going on for the other coach and really see things for as they are, not as he's seen them, to kind of get out of his story. So that's the kind of the work of a coach as well. So, that's what I needed. I needed that, and that accelerates growth. Is having someone to walk the journey with you, take different perspectives, and also provide some advice and a sounding board and some tools along the way. Like we need all those things, I think, to accelerate our growth. I also read a lot, and I found some of them in reading. I was finding some of my best mentors. I read about a book a week, and there's so much mentorship in books, So I think those are some big things in my learning process, as well as writing and podcasting. I even have a coach that I work with. He does a lot of reading as well, and he's actually just started like coaching into other athletes. He's just trying to share what he's learning with them. And so I think when we teach others what we're learning, I think that actually helps us to better understand how to apply it and use it in our own lives as well too. So those are some of my big things as far as our growth, what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer, right? Our athletes have coaches. So, as a coach, investing in our own, being coached by other coaches and just having that experience and diving in and, stepping into our leadership potential. And so talking about leadership, that's definitely something that, I have talked about. It's something that's important to me to teach onto my athletes. And so, it's something that sounds like it's very important to you. And I'm just curious, I'm always trying to figure out how I can help tap in and develop, not just like my natural leaders on my team, but like and not everyone is going to be a vocal leader, but I'm just a big believer in leadership is just leading yourself, right? And leading, being able to be influential in a positive way for your teammates. So how do you tap in and develop leaders or work with your coaches when it comes to developing athletes into leaders?
Yeah, we do it within our teams, and the only way that's been proven to actually really, truly work, and that is through experiential learning. So the system itself for how you empower leaders within the team needs to be focused not just on empowering them, but developing them. But to develop them, they need to have experience. If we look back at our own leadership experience, and you think about how you've grown as a leader and evolved, anybody that's listening, if you reflect on that, it's not necessarily through the books or the talks you've gone to or the classes you've attended. Those things may have been helpful to help learn from your experiences, but it's the experiences. It's the mistakes you've made, the poor decisions you've made, the moments you've blown up. It's through the good decisions. It's through deliberation. It's through having to do hard things, right? So those things, books, obviously written books on leadership, right? Like they're good, they're valuable, but they only help us to go through the experience. So when we talk about with athletes, like just handing them a book and doing a book study with your leadership group, while that's great, if they're not actually being empowered to lead, then it's going to fall short. And so what we do, I'll give you a quick 60-second overview. So we do what's called a leadership council. Leadership council is elected by the players. After the players, the team create a job description. They create a job description based upon what they want out of the leaders. What do we need from leaders to be successful this year? They create a job description based on a few qualities. Then they elect that leader. That leadership council is typically about 1-to-4 ratio for every player on the team, because they're going to lead a unit, and that they're going to have 3 to 4 other players in their unit that they're going to be in charge of serving, supporting, and connecting with. Serving means they may carry the water. It may mean they eat last. It may mean, they're sweeping the lot and cleaning up the locker rooms afterwards. Connecting may be that they have one-on-ones with every athlete in their unit. It may be that they have a group chat. It may be that they organize team lunches, team get-togethers. And then supporting is always individual. Some guys struggle to be on time. Some guys struggle academics. Some guys struggle with their role and their lack of playing time. But that leader is now tasked with helping to support that individual, each individual in their unit. And the coach meets with them weekly. They talk about the issues of the team. They figure out what are the solutions. They're part of the solutions. It's not just the coach coming up with solutions or executing those solutions. The coach meets with them regularly on decisions. It could be just huddle up together. Let's talk about tomorrow, what our plan is. What time should we leave? What time should curfew be? It could be, hey, you guys are in charge of locker room. You guys are in charge of loading the bus. It's delegating, having them to lead and get other guys to do cleaning up and things like that. Like, it really is just constantly putting them in positions to lead, which means make decisions, do hard things, have hard conversations, right? That's what we're doing. And it's that weekly meeting so much about reflecting on, how did you do last week? How'd that go for you? Did you do what you said you were going to do? No, you didn't. Okay, well, what's getting in the way? So it's not calling them out, it's calling them up along the journey, just constantly calling them up and saying, hey, okay, well, what's getting in the way? What can we do to get, to overcome some of those obstacles?
No, this is awesome, because I have a leadership council as well, but I don't have job descriptions, and I like the way that you're putting it. So I have 3 athletes right now that are on leadership council. And so I think you talked about connecting, supporting. What's the other one I'm missing?
Serving. Yeah. So we have a commitment to serve, commitment to support, commitment to connect.
Yeah. And I as I heard you talk here at the beginning, you're talking about how, the leadership books are great, right? They kind of provides you some ideas of how to lead, and, whether it's emotional intelligence, ability to connect, right? But it's the practice of that really helps, people develop and step into that leadership. So, I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, maybe I should have them, because sometimes, like, I meet with them after every practice, and sometimes they'll bring me, like, I'll talk about something. The other day they brought to me with practice after on Monday, they were like, these 2 athletes there, and I guess you can say they're like more of the reserves on our team. They're like, they were super frustrated, and I was like, they're like, you should talk to him, coach. Well, I'm kind of thinking, as you're talking to me, I'm like, well, you know what, maybe I should have them have a conversation. Like, I'll help them through it. Maybe there'll be like a mock conversation with me, and then maybe have them kind of step into it, and also want to maybe do that job description. So I think it's really important to give athletes that ownership, and also the opportunity to kind of go through it. And so when it comes to, I think, what I've noticed before, when I have a leadership council, sometimes the athletes, I guess, they don't, like, the ones that aren't on leadership council, maybe, I don't know if respect is the right word, but they definitely don't, kind of, like, I guess, listen to that council as much as they would listen to a coach. So how would you recommend kind of bridging that, not as, these leaders are like assistant coaches, in ways that are like helpful for the team, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. A few things. One is that we have the players elect, and
Right.
a lot of times they're electing people the coaches don't particularly believe are the best leaders, but the reality is they're the influencers, and you do move away from a popularity contest when you vote on the qualities, because we don't just vote on like who should be on leadership council. We vote on, well, if we say leaders should be selfless, competitive, and accountable, then who are the top 4 guys that are most selfless? Who are the top 4 guys that are most accountable? We vote on that. We score up and tally it that way. So that's one way, is just in how you select it. The second way in that breakdown of lack of respect is you got to let them sit in. You got to let them figure it out. I'll give you an example. I had a coach yesterday. Yeah, it's yesterday. It's Tuesday. We were on a call, and we were talking about it. And I've been working with this coach for 3 years now, and he just crushed it. He just was telling me a story. It wasn't anything I did, but he had his leadership council. They talked about their commitment to serve was they were going to carry the stuff on the bus, and they were going to also make sure that the team cleaned up stuff and left it better than they found it. So 2 things happened over this course of this weekend where they took a trip, away, 5-6 hours away, staying in the hotel. The first thing was all the players got on the bus. and there wasn't, and all the gear was just sitting there. And the coach was like, I'm not going to carry this on. And so one of the captains came out and, leadership council guys, and he grabbed everybody on the leadership council, they carried it and put it back in the bus, and he just communicated, hey guys, you said you're going to do this. You're going to do it. Right. And he didn't yell, didn't scream, get on him or anything like that. It was just that reminder. I'm not going to do it. It's up to you guys. And it wasn't an issue the rest of the weekend. But what did happen later that weekend was they went to a restaurant. They didn't do a good job pushing their tables in and cleaning up and stuff like that. And so he just took a photo of it. He just sent it to his leadership council group. He didn't send it to the team. He said, guys, this is unacceptable. It's not your job to clean it up, but it's your job and your responsibility to make sure the team does. And so sure enough, they went back in there, cleaned it up. I mean, this was not on the prompting of the coach, but they went back in there, walked from the hotel to the restaurant, cleaned it up, and then went and apologized to the restaurant owner. So all these guys, but just slight nudges, and so these are just experiences where, like that cleaning was like getting the whole team. They had to have that conversation. They had to hold them accountable there, and I think putting those guys in those situations like that, I think those go a long way in defining that leadership voice.
Oh, that's really cool. Those are cool stories. And I think, I don't know, I'm thinking back to when I was an athlete and going to restaurants. I'm like, I maybe needed a leadership council to help me, remind me how to act when we were out and about. So I think that's really cool. And those are great ideas. And I feel like they're really tangible. And I feel like those are things that those athletes will remember. And even if they're not on leadership council, like they'll learn how to lead just through, kind of their other leaders, and just recognizing how important it is to, lead by example, and like really having that, that influence. And so with that, I really, my philosophy in terms of with parents is to invite them into the process. I don't want to keep them at arm's distance. And I know you've written quite a bit on this recently. I'm curious, how do you invite parents into the process of helping or having coaches help their players become leaders?
Yeah, I talk a lot about it in my latest book, The Sports Parent Solution. But at the first of it, I'll say 4 things. It comes back to the framework that I use to build culture. Okay, and I talk about in my book, the culture system. The framework relies on a philosophy, like a way of leadership, like transformational leadership at its core. And then outside of that is how we establish the relationships and standards, how we support the relationships and standards, and how we enforce the relationships and standards. And that's our flywheel. Establish, support, and enforce. Now, let's just quickly unpack, those 4 elements. When it comes to in relation to parents, that philosophy, that transformational leadership, I mean, really at the core of it is seeing parents as people, not just as problems, obstacles, or vehicles to our success. And so we have to really see the person and build. And then when we do that, we are actually curious, we're interested, and we build relationships with them. And so we're curious about what's important to them, what their hopes are for their kids. So really at the end of it, that moves into the established pieces. So how do we do that? We do that from early preseason meetings, and we do that early on in some conversations. A lot of times our coaches host parent, coach, athlete conversations. We do unique ways of hosting that preseason parent meeting that makes it fun, engaging, interactive. But in those meetings, we're not just communicating what we're about and our philosophy. We're asking the parents, what's important to you? What's the experience you hope your kid will have in this journey? We're talking about what are their greatest concerns for their child in moving forward in the next few years. So, and then we move into support, and support is consistent communication. Yeah, it's improving your weekly email, but it's also finding time to pick up the phone, send texts, send emails, or just grab a parent when they're picking up their kids from practice and just saying, hey, I'm loving this about your son or your daughter. I love this about that. Or, hey, I just had a great conversation with them today. Like just constantly doing these positive check-ins, as well as when there's a discipline issue, pick up the phone as well and saying, hey, we had this at practice today. You don't need to do anything. We're getting under control, but just need you to know what's going on. Just that way you kind of hear our side of what's going on there. That's why your son or daughter may be sitting out at the game on this next weekend. So there's a lot, but there's a lot of other things. We've had parents or coaches bring parents into the locker rooms. We've had coaches bring parents to be part of a practice. I mean, we've done so much great stuff to continuously bring the parents so that they feel a part of the team. And when they feel a part of the team, they're more likely to be about the team, not just about their kid. But then there's those moments when the parents step out of line, and we have to find ways to actually communicate, hold them accountable, and just give them some feedback on what we're seeing and how it's not helping what we're trying to achieve within our team, or what their hopes are for their own child. And so, those are some of the things that kind of go into the book that are just so critical.
Yeah, and I know, like from my experience, not even with athletics, but I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, and those positive check-ins are so important because oftentimes I feel like as coaches or just sometimes, teachers, the only time that we talk to the parents is when the athlete or the student is having, trouble and issues. It's just having those quick positive check-ins, like, hey, John is doing a great job at practice. He's been, in exemplarily
Mhm.
a leader, and so just having I can't say that word, I guess, just recognizing that communication, and so those quick texts, and it's a lot of times, like when I have certain conversations with parents, they're like, oh, thank you for keeping me informed, like it's they got so much else going on that when they can get those updates, it feels great for them. So I think those are some really great tangible aspects for coaches to bring in parents, and really, because parents are one of the most influential people, if not the most influential people in our athletes' lives. So like when we can build that bridge and connect with them, like we can further our impact.
Yeah, 100%. And you nailed it right there. And like, obviously, there's growing concerns, rightfully so, with the mental health challenges of young men and young women today. And it's like, man, if we want to have an impact as a coach, we need to be interacting with those parents. We need to be engaging with them for sure.
Absolutely. And so as we enter the the last 2 minutes in the fourth quarter of our podcast, when it comes to you've been writing and working with coaches, and just so engaged in the new evolution of where coach in sports is going, where would you say the biggest shift has been in like the last decade, and where do you see coaching continuing to go so we can continue to impact as many kids as we can?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely, there's been a shift in coaching to give some more power back to the athlete. And in many ways, that's been positive, right? You think about a powerless teenage boy that I was in the very early 2000s, and what that led to, that I couldn't speak up for myself, and the coach couldn't be challenged. And now we have athletes that have more options. They can switch clubs, they can switch teams, and there's a lot of problems with that. But there's also some upside to the fact that our athletes are not powerless today, and coaches are having to respond to that. What we don't want is what we're seeing a little bit is just there's a bit of a pendulum swing. Well, then now young athletes are weaponizing that, and parents are weaponizing that against coaches, and they're trying to push them out of the profession because, like, well, they're damaging my mental health. And I mean, it could be, or it could just be that the fact that, the young man or young woman has been saved from all adversity in their life, and now all of a sudden they're not playing. You cannot accuse the coach of damaging their mental health because you're not playing them. Like that's just life. You don't get the job, you don't get the promotion, you don't get the playing time, you don't get the A. So I think while there's a lot of power being given back to the athlete, my hope is that we can find the right balance where we all retain our own power, and we all are invested in what we can do to create a great experience, and also to compete, to perform, to play at high levels, And I think that's something that's really, really challenging, is to find that right balance. I think what we're seeing in all the work I do with teams is that athletes really value the experience, the social connections, which is great. So we have to feed that. We have to create these cultures where people feel seen, they feel known, they feel loved. But we can't forget about what sports are also about. Sports are about the team, the connections, the relationships, but they're also about competing, striving, working hard, pushing yourself, doing hard things, failing, and growing through that. And so there needs to be a hard element to sports. And so I think that it's the way forward is really trying to find the right balance between all that dynamic, for sure.
Right. And that's the art of coaching, right? There's no, and you can't read a book and have the science and be like, I'm going to do it this way and this way. And each team is going to be different. And I think, that is the challenge of coaching, especially in this generation. This generation is, they do have more power. They do have more options. And I do talk about it a lot, and I'm sure you do as well, but you also have to earn that play time. You also have to, kind of earn that spot. Just because, you're on the team doesn't mean you're going to get, get to take all the shots, right? You may get to some playtime, but you're just going to be kind of a plug and play and keep going. So you have to really, it's that art. And so, where can people find and read more about your resources, your books, and, your social media links? And if they want to learn more and connect with you to, kind of learn more about that art of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I highly recommend check out my book, The Culture System. It's on Amazon, Audible, right? It's going to walk you through how to build culture. The follow-up to that is The Sports Parent Solution. Just came out in November of 2023. And that's really about, just it's a much smaller book, but it's about how to apply the culture system when it comes to parents, because they're such a challenge, and it's really about how to turn that challenge, that obstacle, into an ally. Okay. So those are two things. If you're into books, if you're into podcasts, you can check out the Coaching Culture podcast. It's all culture. Just real practical stuff there. If you like the online learning, we've got a phenomenal courses. We got a playing time system course all about addressing how do you address the playing time issues and address that. There's competitive culture. You want to make your practices more competitive. We've got a course on that and a spreadsheet that we give coaches. And we also lastly got like a whole transformational coaching and culture certification course. So we got 3 different levels of that people can explore. That just really helps you to define your philosophy as a coach, and then also develop your own culture system for how you'll build your culture, right? How you're going to establish relationships, the connections in the group, and then how you'll raise those standards in the program. And so course walks you through that, and that's a really powerful course for a head coach and their staffs, or even entire athletic departments are investing in that as well too. You can learn more about that at tocculture.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, JP. I got a couple pages of notes. I'll get some, follow-up questions. I got some books to add to my list. So I really appreciate your time and coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.